It is so great to see people joining us from all over the country. My name is Morgan Starr, and I'm a volunteer with Volunteer Blue. On behalf of our team and our incredible partners, welcome. We are thrilled to welcome Robert Hubbell and Jessica Craven. They're here to give us an update and talk about how volunteers in 2026 can find hope, take action, and win together. Before I introduce our speakers, I want to share a quick background on Volunteer Blue. We connect volunteers with more than 40 grassroots organizations, all working to flip Congress this year. You can sign up today to help them register voters, help people get mail-in ballots, or turn out the vote this fall. And during the program, please drop your questions in the chat for our speakers. We will be happy to answer as many as possible. And now, I am so happy to introduce Jessica Craven and Robert Hubbell. Jessica Craven is an activist, political content creator, and the author of Chop Wood, Carry Water on Substack. Her goal is to make it easy for everyday Americans to get involved in the political process and elect progressive lawmakers everywhere. She is well known to many with hundreds of thousands of followers on Instagram, Substack, and TikTok. Robert Hubbell is our next speaker. He is a retired trial attorney, writer, and the author of today's edition on Substack. He is a trusted political commentator, known for his thoughtful insights on democracy and civic engagement. Robert uses his background in law and ethics to help readers understand national events with clarity. He also has a massive and growing community on Substack. We are so excited to be with you both today. Jessica and Robert, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you. It is an honor to be here. And before anything else gets said, to everyone on this call and everyone at Volunteer Blue, God bless you. Thank you all. You are heroes of democracy. Jessica, how are you doing? Jessica and I are going to chat for a few minutes and then we'll take questions. But let's start, Jessica, by saying here we sit, August 19th, 2026. About 2 months out from the midterms, you have intense engagement with volunteers and grassroots activists all over America. From where you sit today, how does it look? Are people energized, exhausted, excited?
Fill in the blank. Hi, Robert. First of all, nice to see you. Hi, everybody. Great to see you. Great to see such a great turnout here. Thank you, Volunteer Blue, for putting this together. What I see is, yes, everybody is exhausted. That is for sure. I think everybody is really tired. And I see just incredible engagement happening across the board. And Robert, I think you know as well as I do that we started out 10 years ago when Trump was first elected, novices, all of us, right, at political advocacy. Most of us were not activists at that point. A lot of us were not paying attention. And over the last 10 years, we've just watched as people have become incredibly seasoned activists, effective, indivisible group leaders, or, postcard organizers. And all of that is coming to fruition. And I think you've had the same experience as me. When I go to groups now, I look around and think, oh my God, what they're doing is astonishing. And they're not just doing one thing. They're usually raising money and canvassing and organizing a food drive and, delivering groceries to people who are hiding from ICE. And so what I see around the midterms right now is a lot of very tired people who are working harder than they have ever worked to make sure that we win as big as we possibly can. How about you?
I agree with you. I think that this is a particularly daunting moment because of the disinformation and misinformation. And a little bit of a static that is being created within the Democratic Party is making it harder to know what to do and how to do it. But I agree with you. The people on this call are seasoned veterans of 10 years of resistance. I trust them. I believe in them. We are going to win. It's just a question of time, and it's up to all of us to lift one another up and to ensure that we can push through to the final victory, push through the tape.
Yeah, and I have a question for you in regards to that, because something that you do that is super helpful, and I'm sure you all subscribe to Robert already, but if you don't, you should, is that people will come to you with all of their fears. They do it to me too, but I think you get even more of it. I'm afraid that Trump is going to, declare a national emergency and try to steal the election. I'm afraid ICE is going to come to the polls. I'm afraid Trump is just going to stop the midterms or overturn them once they occur. What talk about that? Because you're very calming in this regard. Do you think those things will happen?
Well, one, I think Trump will try whatever he can try. But number two, he's not going to get away with it. And I say that because while we should take Trump seriously, we should take ourselves even more seriously. There are 140,000 polling locations around the country. There are volunteers across America. The government exists because we give it our consent. And everyone who talks about there aren't going to be midterms or Mike Johnson is not going to seat the Congress or this or that, what they do is they describe the problem and then they stop as if we don't exist, as if we have no agency. And the fact of the matter is, most of the people who engage in this doomsaying this just prophecy of doom, many of them don't know what they're talking about. And when you try to get them to peel back the onion and say, okay, you say X is going to happen, but that's illegal. It's a felony. Mike Johnson doesn't seat Congress. The place I get with many readers is they just sort of get frustrated and say, oh, you're just naive. You refuse to see what's going on. And what I want to say to them and to you is, I'm not being naive. I believe in us. If, God forbid, Trump does something untoward with respect to the 2026 midterms, how about the next day we shut down the entire country with a work strike and a purchasing strike and, a transportation strike? All of the billionaires who are propping Trump up at this point in time will realize pretty quickly that they can't do it without us. And there's no reason that we should give consent to an illegitimate government. But and this is the most important point, I should have said it first, the best way to prevent any kind of interference with the 2026 midterms is to have a wave election. That's what happened in November 2025. Trump was talking about rigged elections all the way up until election eve in November 2025. And when Democrats won by 10, 15 points across the board, he shut up. So we have the power. Show up, wave election. We're going to have an election. We're going to control Congress in January 2027.
I feel absolutely confident of that as well. Somebody once said to me recently, so you're optimistic about the midterms? And I said, I'm not optimistic. I'm confident because I know who we have working on our side. So.
Okay, now a question for you. It's a confusing environment because we are being bombarded with requests for all sorts of things. Money, time, talent. Where do you think the most effective place for us to devote our energies and resources to at this point is?
That's a great question. I mean, it is overwhelming. And I feel, every day I see so many asks coming in. Can you phone bank here? Can you door knock here? I think there's a few different ways that we can approach it. We can look for if we're in a swing state, or even if we're not in a swing state. I think we need to get away from only caring about swing states. But if we live somewhere where there's an exciting or competitive election, we can volunteer there. I think that in-person volunteering is ideal. I know, for example, a lot of the crew who were working on Angie Nixon's race in Florida, grassroots volunteers not being paid. And look at what they did. She won by hundreds of thousands of votes. So those grassroots volunteers make such a big difference. So I think if you've got a local race you can get invested in, that's a great place to start. And to me, it doesn't really matter if it's a school board race, county supervisor, U.S. Senate. It'll all bring voters to the polls, and that's what really matters. But you can also adopt a race somewhere else. You can say, I'm going to adopt the Ohio U.S. Senate race, which, we can definitely win, but it's a swing. Well, it's a red state really now, but I'm going to make that my focus, and I'm going to make calls for them once a week, or I'm going to write postcards for them. You can decide I'm going to be a postcard writer, and I'm going to go sign up with postcards to swing states and just get a whole bunch of postcards, and I'm going to do that. Or I'm going to be a vote forward person, and I'm just going to write those letters, and that's what I'm going to do. None of us have to do it all, and that's the most important thing. What I always tell people when I was teaching my Activism 101 workshops is you got to imagine yourself that you're a drop of water. Which is just in and of itself a little tiny inconsequential thing. But when we bring lots of drops of water together, we can start to carve stone. So just figure out what your drop is going to be And then don't worry about the rest. Screen it out because that's not your job. That's somebody else's job. But do bring your drop. That's my that's my
Exactly. And if I had anything to add, it's not all on your shoulders. We're in this together. Do what you can. And together, there's nothing that we cannot do. Jessica, I stepped on your question to me, so you're going to have to call an audible and move to the next one.
I'm going to move to the next one, Robert. I have a question for you. Well, it's really related because the other thing that we hear all the time, what other than like what can I do volunteer wise, is where do I give money? I'm getting 1,000 text messages a day from various PACs that have names that sound like I should give there, but I don't know. Where do I give? Do you want to talk a little bit about where you think the most effective place to give money is?
Yes. Part of the unsatisfying answer to this question is we have to give money everywhere. We have to give big money, small money. We have to match what the Republicans are doing. But again, it's not all on your shoulders. But for the people on this call, what I would urge you to do is to show a bias in favor of grassroots organizations that are focused on getting out the vote and helping candidates run better campaigns, because those grassroots organizations, they give all the money or virtually all of the money, except for some small piece that goes to Act Blue for processing, directly to their on the ground efforts or to candidates. That is not true of all of these fundraising PACs that Adam Bonica wrote about in Substack. And I highlighted his article a couple of days ago. There's this whole industry out there dedicated to becoming rich off of raising money for us. That's not true of the grassroots organizations. So focus your time and attention on them. But also for Democrats in red states where, they're probably not going to win, help them out, because we need Democrats on every ballot. We have to give Democrats a reason to show up. And if there's no Democrat on the ballot, why should people even show up to vote? And if you give someone like that $25, they can buy yard signs. They can have a part-time assistant. Whereas if you're giving to a senatorial campaign that's going to run or burn through $300 million, your $25 doesn't go as far.
Yep. I 100% agree. And I would just put in a quick pitch for oath.vote. I really like them. It's a sort of an alternate giving platform to Act Blue, but it also will sort of ask you a couple questions to see what's important to you and then make recommendations. And it's very strategic. So they basically built a whole program to pick out every week it changes which races are the most strategic, most important, and need funding the most. Because some races are really important, but have a ton of funding. Others we're never going to win and are raising insane amounts of money. So Oath will kind of say, hey, this is a race that we actually need to win. We can win, but they need more money. And it's really great. I highly recommend it. And they will not sell your information. So unlike Act Blue, you won't get a million text messages as a result of just giving. So
Okay, so let me throw you, this is probably the last question.
okay.
A little bit of a curveball because in my mind, it's forward looking. A question, every time I appear before grassroots organizations, I always get asked this question. Where are the young people? How can we engage young people? What do you say to that?
I used to not have an answer for this, but I do now, actually. So, well, one answer is just to work on, help organizations that are trying to register young people. Because when they're registered, they do vote. We know that from studies. And you and I are both big fans of the Civic Center. There's actually been a big spike in youth voter registration, but that organization is working really hard to get more youth registered. But also, the youth come out when they're excited about a candidate. So there is lots of youth involvement in candidates that they're excited about. We've seen Abdul El Sayed has tons of youth volunteers. Mamdani did. Angie Nixon did. So the youth are picking and choosing their campaigns. They're not going to get excited about establishment Democrats. Now, you can agree with them or not, but I am telling you that I see where they go. And they're volunteering for Sunrise Movement. They're volunteering for candidates who are running more progressive campaigns, that are not taking corporate PAC money, that are focused on climate. Yes, Israel, Gaza, but also, Medicare for all, and a lot of things here that they don't see mainstream candidates in the Democratic Party necessarily focusing on. So I actually feel really optimistic that young people will get involved and are involved, but they are demanding a new kind of candidate. And it's our job to listen. I think that is my personal opinion.
And let me just add, I agree with everything you've said. Let me just add this. I was at a grassroots meeting a couple days ago, mostly people my age, a couple of younger people. I got asked that question, and I said, the thing we must do is we must continue to lead by example. They need to know that we haven't given up, that we had a big part in creating these problems, and we're here to solve them. And they need to see us standing out on bridges and roadsides so that they know, even though while they're paying off student loans and trying to buy a house and take care of kids, we're here fighting the fight and ready for them to join us at any point in time. And a young woman in the audience said, Amen.
Mm, wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. Agree with everything that's been said, and so grateful to have you both here for this conversation. We are gathering some questions that were posed to you in the chat. So, as our team is gathering those, we just wanted to thank everyone for being here today. And as all good organizers do, we would love to ask you to sign up for an action. I know many of you are already doing such great work to help and support our democracy, but we wanted to drop some links in the chat where you can go right now to sign up for additional actions. We have launched a massive effort to mobilize volunteers in red congressional districts here at Volunteer Blue. We're doing this in key districts in Arizona, Pennsylvania, and other critical areas where congressional races may be won by just a few votes. So, no matter where you live, you can call friendly Democrats in these key areas and invite them to become local volunteers. Then, those local volunteers will work on the ground in their districts to boost voter turnout for the midterms. This is truly one of the most important things remote volunteers can do for the November elections. And plus, all of our volunteers who've been doing this have absolutely loved making these calls because they are to friendly Democrats. So we are dropping the sign up links into the chat right now. You can click the link to recruit volunteers in key districts or click the link to visit our Red District project. And here is the QR code as well. So this is one you can just scan with the camera on your phone if you have it nearby, or if you're able to take a screenshot on your computer, that might work as well for later too. Folks have asked, if they are in a safe state and they can travel to other states, should they be joining and going to knock doors maybe in a state that is nearby? And is that useful if it is a swing district, for example?
Jessica.
Well, oh, I think it's great to go knock doors in a nearby district. Yeah, I think that is a very handy thing to do if you don't feel like there's something near you that is critical, or do both. I generally will do some Southern California door knocking, but Robert and I traveled to Charlotte. We were both there at the same time, he with Jill, to knock doors for Kamala Harris. And that was an extraordinary experience, even though it had a very sad ending. So yeah, I think it's really important to do a little bit of both. I do think there's something to be said for door knocking in your own neighborhood when you can, because you know the district really well and you know the community really well. But also I know that all of these races, these tight races, are all going to be looking for volunteers. So absolutely, if you can afford to go do that, I would. Yeah.
It sounds intimidating. It's not, because they send you out with other people, groups of
Yeah.
people. And once you have your first conversation, it's great. You're off to the races. I had the benefit of being with Jessica. Jill and I were with her. And I mean, Jessica could chase someone down in a parking lot, and 5 minutes later, she was exchanging phone numbers with that person and giving a hug. And that gave me confidence to just say, they're just go out and have those conversations. And some of them don't end well, and others of them do. And as I said before, Jessica said, it's just one drop. If you get one more person to the polls, that can make a difference.
Absolutely. I love that. And so someone also put in the chat here, like, I'm thrilled to see moderate Dems winning, sometimes the Democratic Socialists or more progressives winning. How can we get the Democratic Party to stop the infighting and kind of discussing this, the left, the center, and really just focus on defeating the GOP? What would you all say to that?
What I would say is don't amplify it, because I believe that there are MAGA operatives sitting somewhere in a dark room with a lot of money saying, how can we get Democrats to fight one another? Look, there are legitimate issues about the future of the Democratic Party and American foreign policy and domestic policy. We are not going to solve those issues between now and November, or probably even between now and 2028. We need to take back control of Congress, and the only way we're going to do it is as a unified party that is moving forward. And I would urge people, I hear every day from readers who are concerned about the DSA, and they think that they write things like the Democratic Socialists of America are going to be the end of the Democratic Party. And I want you to think just a moment about how that sounds to a young person who, for the first time in their lives, are excited by a DSA candidate and went out and knocked on doors or voted. And then we say, oh gosh, the DSA is bad. We need to listen to what it is that is being said. Center, middle, and left of the party, and take those ideas and speak to the voters. That's our task. Do not amplify the divisions in the party. That is exactly what Donald Trump and Stephen Miller want you to do. Do not be their unwitting allies.
I will just second what Robert said. I think in the buildup to the 2024 election, there was a great deal more bot activity happening than any of us understood, working to divide us, particularly over Israel-Palestine. And I think it was extremely successful. And so I am extremely leery of anybody or anything I see online trying to sort of sow division. And I move away. That is, maybe during the primaries, fine. But as of yesterday, the primaries are over. And our job now is to unify no matter what, and be vote blue no matter who for the intents and purposes of this election. I will hold my nose and vote for anyone with a D next to their name. I mean, I'm not going to have to hold my nose for any of them, but I don't have to like them, but I do have to help them win, because this is existential. And all of us, no matter where we fall on the spectrum, have to make the same. Because it's easy for the people in the center to say, well, the people on the left need to get with our centrist candidates, but it has to go both ways. If a Democratic Socialist gets the nomination, those centrists need to get on board. All of us need to get on board. There is a greater good that we're serving right now. It's a giant tent party right now because it is the pro-democracy party. So everybody who's not MAGA has got to be able to find a space in this tent right now.
And the other thing I would remind people, and I wrote this last night in my newsletter, is that the American electorate is essentially 35% independent, 30% Democratic, 30% Republican. We need to be speaking to the independents. And believe me, they're not interested in internecine fights in the Democratic Party. They want to know what we're going to do to make their lives better. We need to focus on that.
Yep.
Absolutely. And this next question sort of touches on that a little bit, where what do you do with folks who might not feel connected to any party because of disillusionment or other reasons? How would you suggest reaching out to them?
I'll be very brief and just simply say, invite them to be with you. You can't win an argument with someone, because if you win, you've lost them. And if you lose, you've lost. Invite them to sit with you when you engage in phone banking or postcard writing. Ask them just to come along with you to a standout or a bridge. They don't have to do anything. They don't have to hold a sign. They just have to watch you being someone who's supporting democracy in action. And you know what? I guarantee you, in 5 minutes, in 10 minutes, in 20 minutes, next Sunday, they'll be back and they'll see it's not frightening, and that there is some real value to doing that.
And also, I would just add, that most of us are not, I'm a Democrat, but I'm not like Democrats only. Most of us are not, wearing our party affiliation like the most important part of us. We just all want to beat fascism. And I think that, as Robert said, we bring them along and we show them that, nobody here is crazy. Well, maybe a few of us are, but we're all just working towards a common destination. And, every election is there's two buses going, and we get on one of the two buses. And basically that's it. Which one is going closer to our common destination? And so the buses are just two buses. Maybe they say Democrat and Republican, but they're still, the destination is the thing. And we just are all trying to get to that same destination. And so, I think it's okay to let go of party labels a little bit and just say, like, right now we're trying to save democracy and also our planet, quite frankly. And I think we can all agree that we want those things. And the other thing I will just say real quickly is that right now we have a great opportunity because there's a lot of issues that are very, very burning and pressing that are quite cross partisan. It's not just the economy, although that is a huge one. Everybody's concerned about gas prices and prices, but also data centers, AI. These are things that are ICE abuses, but maybe that a little bit less so because some people on the right really do seem to love them, which is horrible. But like data centers, AI, those are things that we can connect with even like right-wing people about and bring them along. So it's a weird moment where loyalties, I think, are shifting. And let's just all try to be open and ask people to be open and give us a chance as well.
And I just would add that I think data centers are an avatar for
Yeah,
the fears of the younger generations because they are not only a threat to the environment, they are a threat to their job security, to their futures, to the local governance in their communities. And that is a place where we can connect with young people, people in the middle, maybe people further on the right, and frankly, as long as you're talking about it, add flock cameras in there as
yeah.
well, because it's exactly the type of big government thing that makes conservatives mad and that I think is antithetical to younger voters as well.
Agree,
Yes.
100%.
Yeah, I see a lot of people in the chat are agreeing about the flock cameras and the AI and all of those things, like you said, can work again with both parties. And so, as a last question here to round us out, when we win, when we take back Congress, what are some things that you want to see our leaders fighting for to restore our democracy?
Robert, you go first.
So the first thing we have to do is to pass the John Lewis Freedom to Vote Act. The next thing we have to do is pass the National Redistricting Reform Act. And then we have to expand the Supreme Court so it will not overrule the constitutionality of those two acts. My biggest fear sitting here today is not whether we will win or whether Trump will interfere with the election. My biggest fear is that we will not be brave enough, that we will not be bold enough to do the things that are necessary to elevate women to back to full status as citizens, to elevate the black citizens of America to full status as citizens under the Constitution. We owe it to them to get that done in 4 years, not in a generation or 2 generations or 3 generations, because we're going to impose term limits on the Supreme Court, which will take forever. We need to act boldly and decisively.
100% agree. And I think that's one of the reasons we're seeing so many young people, I'll just say quickly, going for these DSA candidates because they're fearless and they're willing to fight. Right now, people are really looking for fighters. And I do think that that's something that we want to elevate and amplify whenever we can, are those candidates who we know will be aggressive once they get in office. Because we need FDR style sweeping changes and legislation. I will just say that I was on a call yesterday with Senator Whitehouse, a small briefing it was about Todd Blanche and the sort of dangers he poses. But Senator Whitehouse was really impressive also in speaking about what they're preparing to do if they get majorities. And this is something we can tell people is that they can do a lot more with majorities in both chambers. If they get majorities in both the House and the Senate, they can be very aggressive and they are planning to be very aggressive. And they're also already sort of sketching out what they will do once we get a trifecta. And there is a lot that can be done. And I want you to know that people are planning. So our job is simply to make sure that we turn out the votes to win as big majorities as we can. I believe we've got a really good shot at flipping the Senate. Not guaranteed, but really good shot. But just if you can put as a sort of carrot at the end of the stick for people, like we want accountability. Everybody is in despair because it seems like there's no accountability. Well, we can really start having it as soon as January, but we've got to give them majorities big enough to accomplish it so that we have padding for the the fearful members, so that we don't get, Joe Manchin out of the satisfaction
Right.
we want. We want wide margins. So tell your friends and family that's why we need them voting.
And if I could just clarify my prior remarks, someone just posted, women are not second-class citizens. I'm not suggesting that they are, nor am I suggesting that blacks are second-class citizens. What I'm saying is that the Supreme Court has said that there's only one group in America that is not entitled to make medical decisions about their own bodies, and that is women.
Yeah.
And we need to restore that autonomy and agency to them. And they've said that there's only one group in America who doesn't have full and equal access to the ballot, and that is black voters. And we need to repair that immediately. And the only way to do that is to pass those two pieces of legislation and expand the Supreme Court significantly, not to 13, not to 15, but to 17 or 21 or something like that, so we can get it done in 4 years and restore them to their full rights under the Constitution that have been denied to them by the Supreme Court.
Thank you both for those final words. And like you said, Jessica, we need those fighters. And we are so grateful that you both have been fighters for our democracy and against fascism. So we were so grateful to be with you tonight. I want to give you a big round of applause and thank you for spending this time with us. And most importantly, thank you to all of us for joining us and for everything you are doing to help save our democracy. We hope you will join us again soon. Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone. God bless you all for everything you do.
Your door, knock, knock. One small step, big shock. Names on paper, boots on ground. Hear that spark go round and round. Say it once, say it right. Change can start tonight. You can change Congress.